Millennial girlies will not be unfamiliar with the film The Beach, the sexual awakening of all of us. As if Leonardo DiCaprio in Titanic wasn't enough, now we have to watch him have sex with Tilda Swinton and be soaking for most of the film. Where the Venn diagram of naughties, Leonardo DiCaprio enthusiasts and nerds overlaps, you'll find people who have read this book that it was based on by Alex Garland. The book follows a voyeuristic American backpacker who wants adventure and perfection, and through a series of coincidences stumbles upon this secret community of perfect people living in a perfect society on a perfect beach. Now, when they were making the film adaptation, obviously 20th Century Fox had to find the perfect location. So perfect that people would become infatuated with the film and the location and the sexy people in it, and they would make a lot of money. So they found this beach, Maya Bay on the island of Copapile, but it wasn't perfect enough. The filmmakers set about making lots of cosmetic changes to the landscape. They levelled and widened the beach, they ripped out lots of native shrubbery, adding new plants and coconut trees to give it a tropical feel, as if that wasn't already kind of inherent. What they perhaps hadn't thought about was the fact that a lot of the roots of the sand dunes that they pulled up were literally all that was keeping that 250-metre beach there. Once the film crew ripped it out, the beach literally started eroding back into the ocean. Until recently, the legacy of the film, The Beach, and Leonardo DiCaprio's sexy body kept about 5,000 visitors a day trying to visit the beach, to the point where the local authorities in 2018 had to literally close it until further notice. It was not until 22 years later, in the year of our Lord 2022, that Thailand's Supreme Court have ordered 20th Century Fox to pay £235,000 to restore the beach themselves. What makes all of this mischief even more ironic is that the point of the book, if you read it like the nerds have, is that the pursuit of aesthetic natural luxury and perfect social systems is the silliest thing you could do. It could literally be called Poisoning Paradise, a novel. Alex Garland, the author, was quite pissed about it. And rightly so. And fun fact, if you ever get around to reading the book, don't be surprised at the end doesn't end like the film, because at the end of the book, they literally start eating each other. But Lena, why are you talking about The Beach? The Little Mermaid is the new film that's coming out. As the new live-action adaptation of this famous Hans Christian Andersen mermaid story gushes into the world, it begs the question: what is the relationship between what fascinates us about Ariel and her friends and their real-life counterparts and what they're experiencing right now? Here are my soggy opinions, because God knows, darling, it is better down where it is where. Immediate regret, take that joke out. I have always had somewhat of a sea boner, in that I've been fascinated by the sea and the films that feature it. The Beach, Beaches, Free Willy, Finding Nemo, Peter Pan, and yes, The Little Mermaid. Gimme. As a girl who grew up in the Midlands and lived the furthest, I think, from the sea it is possible to live in the UK, the novelty of the seaside has never worn off for me, to the point where as soon as I had the option, I moved for 3 years to a seaside town. Now, while we can probably cite Hollywood's depiction of the ocean as part of people's fascination with it, it's also just, I think, a very basic instinct and very intellectually logical. The sea is really freaking cool. It takes up like 70% of the Earth's surface, and it dances for its dinner. It really earns its space. On any given day, 50 to 80% of the oxygen production, or like photosynthesis if you want to get GCSE science about it, isn't done by trees or shrubs or hedges. Oh no. It is done by ocean bacteria and plankton. What? Not only does it provide that, it also absorbs between 25 and 40% of the carbon dioxide that we're all putting out with our breath. By the way, if you didn't get my sarcastic, incredibly salty British tone, I am not in fact worried about breath as emissions. It's the rest of the carbon emissions that we're worried about. Okay, good. Class dismissed. Main message being, even though most of us don't live anywhere near the ocean, don't really maybe think about the ocean on a daily basis, we can do all of the forestry campaigns and plant as many trees as we like, but if we fuck with the ocean, none of that matters. We will still be poor unfortunate souls. Of course, the irony that is laced into our fascination of the ocean and sea creatures and the aesthetic of beautiful beaches is that with our fascination, we are kind of destroying it. Failure to regulate your emotions to the point where all you're left with is a little bit of sad, dead hamster in your hands kind of sitch. The BFI released a report recently, which is called the Screen New Deal, which puts even my bad dad puns to shame. It reported that the average film generates just under 3,000 tons of CO2, which is equivalent of 11 one-way trips to the moon. That's the carbon emissions we're talking about. To the moon. From how they source props to the way they plan their travel and flying people from location to location to the very unsustainable accommodation, it's all a little bit of a shambles, if you ask me. And I could throw figures at you all day about that, just as I could about what's going on in the ocean right now and how wildly the reality differs from the very funky, sexy dance Ariel's sisters are doing at the beginning of the film. All the data would suggest that it's less disco balls down there and more like emergency war room meetings. More distinct than a lot of other Disney films, there are very clearly two worlds in The Little Mermaid. The world of the land, which is 18th century Denmark, I believe, and then the world below. But weirdly in my head, while I understand that the world of carriages and horses and castles and very sexy breeches, I'm looking at you, Sir Grimsby. While I can understand that world isn't the present, under the sea with all of the shipwrecks and the tridents and the fish, all of that feels very present tense to me, despite the fact that while the ocean might have looked like that in the 1850s when there was only 1 billion people on the planet, can you even imagine? It certainly doesn't look like that now. As it stands at the moment, every minute the equivalent of a truckload of plastic is added to the ocean. If we carry on like this, by 2050, the estimates say that there will be, by weight, more plastic in the ocean than there are fish. So it would seem that the seaweed is not always greener in somebody else's lake. In fact, it's probably brown on both sides of the fence, however you slice the mackerel. However, I am aware that if I keep just quoting stats at you, I'm probably going to lose you or put you into fight and flight mode. So instead, I'd really just like to talk about the fetishization we have of the ocean and how the kind of tragedy can be turned on its head. This idea that we love nature and we crave it and we seek to repair that separation is interesting. I just think that we might be going about it in a bit of a quirky, weird way, which is classic for humans. We're the weirdest of all the species. I can feel the exasperation from all of the rest of them, honestly. In this book, Losing Eden, which I've really been enjoying recently, she talks about this writer, Richard Louv, who has coined the phrase nature deficit disorder to refer to the impact of a lack of connection with nature on people's health. Later, the Australian philosopher Glenn Albrecht coined this term called psychoteractic illnesses, for example, earth-related mental health issues such as eco-anxiety and global dread. There have been lots of studies about how our separation from nature does affect our mental wellness, but what's interesting is it also made me think about and kind of talks about this idea of extinction as a cycle. We don't have the time or resources or don't have our lives built around accessing nature regularly. It becomes something like a treat or a holiday. So we end up craving it but can't fulfill it, and then Disney comes in and offers up this kind of para experience of nature that is really glittery and also offers us other things we crave, like species variety. How often in our real life do we really see like a massive amount of species, especially as a lot of the species are being killed off, at least in the UK. And also visual novelty. We don't get to see that much in our daily lives. Generally, most of us are turning up to the same 2 or 3 rooms and sitting in the same car or on the same bus every day. Plus, it's served with an amazing ketchup topping of beautiful songs, amazing dance routines, and a very clear goodie and baddie structure. Everything that we want. Through consumption of this media, that craving is plugged or satisfied a little bit, but not enough so that it inspires us to do stuff about the actual ocean that we love looking at. And that is how the perpetual cycle of extinction occurs. We crave nature, we can't meet our needs properly, somebody else serves us something that definitely isn't nature, but will do for now, I guess. And then we never end up collectively organising enough to fulfil the original craving for the nature itself. And then before you know it, access to that nature becomes impossible because it no longer exists. But Lena, it's just a story. Let us enjoy it. Oh, I will. And actually, the more I think about why the aspects of Disney stories that are fantastical, it also makes me realize all of the parts of it that actually aren't. They're more true to life than we think. For example, the anthropomorphizing, and I'm putting that in quotes because of what I'm about to say, of animals is something that we're led to believe is childish and innocent, but of course not true, because grown-ups know that animals aren't really sentient beings with their own feelings and individual thoughts and capacity for pain, except our dog. Our dog has a capacity for pain. Our dog has a very complex personality that nobody else can understand. All the other animals only think real thoughts in picture books. That's for children. In fact, the intelligent and self-organising and quite loving fish like Flounder from The Little Mermaid might be the least fantastical part of the film. Example, this book, This is Vegan Propaganda, talks a lot about studies when it comes to intelligence and fish. Fish have been shown to act intelligently. They can be taught how to evade a trap and remember it a year later, and they can learn from each other, recognise other fish they've spent time with previously, know their place within the fish social hierarchy, and remember complex spatial maps of their surroundings. Fish also work together with different species fish and show cooperation and trust, with fish remembering which other fish were cooperative or uncooperative. No offence to all the dogs out there, previous dog owner, occasional dog sitter for my parents. No offence to the dogs that I know, but I personally haven't really witnessed them doing any kind of complex negotiations or collaborations with other species. You can barely get them to shit in the same place twice. Coordinating a D&V trip with a map and loads of spatial awareness? Depends on the dog. But hey, even if your dog can do all of those things, and good on them, it only makes them as intelligent as a fish. Now, we don't have time to go down the caveat of like judging whether we should eat something based on how intelligent it is like very problematic and weird and not something that you would like to extrapolate into other situations, believe me. But the point is here is that I have been a meat eater and a fish eater for way longer than I've been vegetarian. But over the course of years and lots of complicated conversations and reading a lot, I realised that for me to be morally consistent in what I do, I had two choices: stop eating fish or start eating dogs. I can't eat a dog for lots of intellectual reasons, but also just from a very instinctual level, it feels wrong, does it not? For people who eat dogs and horses, I'm like, have you met a horse? Can you not see the complex philosophical dilemmas going on behind their eyes? And then the other argument is like, well, it's fine because fish aren't really like other animals. They don't really feel pain. Well, if they don't feel pain, then I'm sure they won't mind when we dump them on fishing boats where they either die of suffocation, being crushed under the weight of all the other fish on top of them, or through a rupturing of their internal organs. Any fish that are then still living when they begin the process will die through a combination of suffocation and evisceration when the animals are gutted alive. One study found that some fish can remain conscious for 20 to 40 minutes after they have been gutted. No wonder they're all queuing up to get legs. Jesus Christ.
Fish are friends, not food.
Also, the misconception that fish don't feel pain has been widely scientifically refuted. And also just like, if you just think about evolution for like 1 second, makes literally no sense. Like the whole point in feeling pain is that your body is alerted that something is wrong so you can then fix the thing that is wrong and keep surviving. And if they didn't have that, then they wouldn't have evolved at all. Like, it doesn't, just think, just 1 second. How have fish evolved if they can't feel pain? And I used to comfort myself when I ate loads of fish because I was like, well, my body needs fish, it's fine, it needs fish. But devastatingly, it doesn't, which we don't have time to get into in this video. It is very rare to find somebody who actually genuinely biologically needs fish. It's not really a thing. And if you're somebody who fishes locally yourself or has like an indigenous practice that's very logical and in line with the way nature operates, then great, like genuinely have at it. But I'm imagining that most of you who are watching this video don't source your fish that way. You probably buy it from the supermarket. And for me, like, the more I read about it, the more I realized that fish was just like a treat that I liked. It was something that I liked the taste of. It wasn't something my body actually needed. And all this, Flounder bleeding out while his friends watch on, Sebastian finally being caught by the chef and boiled alive, all for treats when there are so many other treats in this world. It makes me sad. When in the year of our Lord 2023, the bountiful treats that are available would blow our ancestors' minds. It's all just literally food for thought. Anyway, I would like to wrap this video up with some of my findings and my thoughts about what we can do, because I struggled to script the end of this video because I actually don't really know 100% what we can do. I certainly don't think it's not watching The Little Mermaid. I think that's going to be really fun, particularly with the casting. I think it's important that if you are genuinely excited about it, that you pay for it and you watch it. But beyond that, learning about the ocean and what's going on with it can be scary, because I honestly don't have the answers to what we can do, but I don't see that as a reason to not talk about it. Here are some things that I have found out though. There are a lot of things that we're told that people are doing about the ocean that actually seem to be not helpful at all. For example, beach cleanups. While these things look like a good community laugh and have a very visual, immediate impact on communities, ocean-wise, the biggest problem with plastic in the ocean is probably coming from your knickers. I know, it's from your knickers. It's literally microplastics. When we wash our plastic-filled clothes in washing machines, they go, like, all of the plastic gets into the water sources and then into the ocean, and that's like probably the biggest issue we have with plastic right now, apart from another issue I'll tell you about in a second. So if you only have a finite amount of time or resources or energy to remember this stuff, remember, maybe instead of a beach cleanup, avoiding buying new clothes with plastic in them. For example, nylon, acrylic, polyester. Yeah, it's all literally, we're literally just wearing plastic. I don't know what to tell you. This is probably plastic. But if you do have them already, make sure you use a guppy bag or something to filter out the microplastics, and tell your friends about it. The other one is recycling. As long as we put the plastic that we use in our recycling bag and don't just put it in a bin, it's not going to end up in the ocean, right? I don't want to dissuade you from using your recycling bin, but it is a last resort. 10% of all of the recycling that we put out there in the UK is actually recycled. I recently learned a new term called wish cycling, and I think it's useful. I'll leave the links below if you are curious. But what you can do instead is buy less fish. I'm not saying give it up completely if you don't want to. That is your own moral thing, or maybe just start eating some dogs, because I realised that they don't come in plastic packaging. But eating less fish than you do already helps an amazing amount. Not because of like the packaging that fish is packaged in, but actually because of the way most of the fish that is available to us is fished. So 70% of the plastic in the ocean, I'm laughing, but it's not funny.
But it's not funny at the end of the day, is it? It's serious.
70% of the macroplastics in the ocean is fishing related. They're called ghost nets. A lot of the industrial fishing people just seem to leave their shit in the ocean when they're done. Cheers then. I don't know if you've heard of the Great Pacific Garbage Patch, that huge clump of rubbish in the middle of the ocean, but like 86% of that was fishing nets. Yeah. What? But as always, apart from these individual actions, the most important thing is that we organise. Changing laws and systemic alterations are inevitably what is going to help more than any of us individually changing what we do. I'm going to leave some links below to people who I think are doing a cool job on this front, particularly the sea shepherds, who are taking the whole good pirate to a whole new level. But if you know anyone who's doing what you feel to be a very effective job, let me know in the comments below. Are you excited to see The Little Mermaid? I am. I'm not trying to persuade you from seeing it. I'm more saying let's watch it, but not let our excitement and wonder for the ocean fade as the credits roll up. I have a whole series on my channel called Positive Panic, which is my personal journey of trying to unnumb myself from the reality of what's going on around us and trying to remain hopeful about a future that will inevitably be very different from what we're experiencing right now. And I'm personally excited about how things could turn out if we all pull our finger out a little bit and become part of this world. It's okay, I know I'm insufferable the video, so for now you can go. Thank you so much to the Gumption Club who tipped me per video to make sure these videos keep happening. Thank you, that's very nice of you, thank you.